Hello and welcome to today's massive Buddy Beta episode, where today we're going to be taking a look at some concepts from 2002 by former Rockstar Vancouver character artist Fred D, who was at Barking Dog Studios when it was acquired by Rockstar Games, and he left the company in 2003. Well, April 2003 to be exact. Now because of this, a lot of characters and cliques were changed drastically, deleted entirely, and give us a massive insight into Buddy's more adult and darker tone. So I'm going to be analysing each and every single one of them under a fair use context. So let's get on with it. But before we do, let's get onto the proof that these are from 2002. Now many of these artworks do have marks on them which tell us the date they were created. Like this one, it says 1002, which obviously means October 2002. So this was when Buddy was first entering its concept stages. Now this actually does say that Buddy was actually developed just before Grand Theft Auto Vice City was even published, because as we know Vice City was published in October 2002. But that being said, this is confirmation that Buddy was built up from Grand Theft Auto Vice City, as in the game's files we do have some Vice City leftovers and that, so yeah, so it could be that Buddy was built up off of a very late version of GTA Vice City. And as we can also see in this, we can see our Beta Borth Academy logo, where it just has B with a fist, a very different style crest. Of course we do also have this on the Tyler Wilson concept artworks, but they were very difficult to see back then, because of the low quality models and the low resolution images. So let's get onto the main character stuff, and buckle in because this stuff is massive. So let's start off with our first beta concept, which might be a very early version of Gary Smith. At the time this concept was created, the character didn't have a name, instead used as a placeholder name of main character GR10, and definitely says this could be Gary Smith because of what he's wearing, which is like a vest with rolled up sleeves, which is much like Gary Smith's final outfit. Now for some reason, if this is Gary, he would have had a messenger bag, which is something we have actually seen on another beta character concept, for Ernest Jones. Our next character concept is another main character, called main character GR08, and he looks to be a very young boy wearing a school blazer and carrying a briefcase. Kinda reminds me of Will McKenzie from The Inbetweeners. Now this kid looks like he could also be a goody two shoes. Now I have a feeling this might be a very early draft of Pete, as in the final game Pete does have that stereotypical good boy personality, he does no wrong, he's nervous, he's shy and all that, and of course he's shorter than Jimmy is in the final game. Though I could be wrong on that. Now because the main characters we looked at just had like main character GR10 and GR08 implies that there were at least 10 main characters. So let's actually cover the deleted characters and majorly changed ones first, and we'll start off with the named characters. So our first majorly deleted character was somebody called Chuck. Now I'm not sure if Chuck was originally planned to be our protagonist or a supporting character. Both are possibilities, as it does seem unusual for Chuck to be one of the very few characters, to be created in this concept stages, but given a name rather than say, main character 07 or something like that, for an example. Now given his appearance, he does look a bit like a supporting character, though I'm still unsure on that. I don't think Chuck was a concept for any existing character in Buddy either, as in the final game there are no black characters who are main characters. I guess the closest you could probably get could be Ethan, as he does wear a similar outfit and has a similar hairstyle, but I don't think it is. It just seems a bit odd for Chuck to be designed first, as sort of like a main character, and then reworked to be a very minor character. And this character could definitely imply a massive major change to the storyline itself, and that is our girlfriend Cassie. The fact it says girlfriend definitely implies that she was a main character, and her design does not look any similar to, well, any character we see at all in the final game. I can just tell from this girl that if she was in the game, the whole story would have been a lot different. Like I believe that if Cassie was included, the romancing missions probably wouldn't be, nor would Jimmy have the ability to kiss boys, or actually I could even imply that art class was going to be a hell of a lot different initially. And also because she's named, it seems like Chuck and Cassie were created at a time when Buddy's storyline was incredibly different. Now for something that possibly gives us proof that Buddy was going to be a much darker game initially. There are concepts for a gangster, somebody who looks like they're in with the mafia. This to me implies that Buddy was a much more adult oriented game if they're going to have mob gangsters appear. I honestly cannot think in any way what the mafia or any kind of like gangster with a briefcase would have a role in for. That's something you'd expect to see in like Grand Theft Auto, specifically like Liberty City Stories, GTA 3, those kind of games. Our next change is that Buddy would have had a stoner kid appear. Of course, any mention of drugs is never mentioned at all in the final game, so this confirms that Buddy was going to be slightly more adult. Now notice how none of these characters have clique names too. But speaking of that, many of us are familiar with the deleted punk clique, and we only know of Sid who remains. Well, we have at least one more character confirmed with this guy. I don't know what to say about this character, as like all the other punks they were deleted entirely. But given all the proof of the punks existing that we have, from the character concepts of Sid and, Sid even appearing in the instruction booklet comic book, it could actually mean that this character did survive and was deleted in like 2004 or something. That's just a possibility, however. Now, another strange choice is that Buddy would have had a religious kid appear. Of course, in Buddy's final game, there is nobody in the game who is religious, aside from the ambience you can hear outside the Ball of Vale Church. Now, I can't help but feel that this character may have been worked into Melvin O'Connor a bit, but I don't think they are because, as we know, a beta version of Melvin exists anyway, and they do not look like this. And here's a massive change for the academy itself. There were concepts for a linebacker for the Bullworth football team. Well, at this point, there was no actual name for the academy, and we do see American football in the final game. But the major change here is they're called the Lions, not the Bullhorns. Now, as mentioned just, this was at a stage where Bullworth Academy didn't have its name, and the logo just said B on it. So this could definitely be from before Bullworth's name was finalised, so the beta team's name was just close to being the Bullworth Lions. Of course, we don't know if they did actually decide on any other names other than Bullworth, but I think going off the fact that it just says B on the crest could imply that they wanted an academy name beginning with B to begin with. There are also concepts for a junkyard owner and his dog, so this confirms the junkyard was one of the earliest concepts that made it into the final game, but the owner sadly didn't. To me, the dog looks like he was worked into the various dogs that were walked around by the NPCs. Now, while police do appear in the final game, they were changed drastically, with the concepts of the police being much more sheriff-like. Now, because of this, I believe the early concepts for Buddy's location might have not been in a suburban town at all. Now, one thing I definitely have no idea about is the AV kid. He looks about 10 years old, and that's all I can really say about him, because no child this young appears in the final game, not even Sheldon or Pedro. Another character I have absolutely no idea about is the radio DJ. Maybe Buddy was originally going to be more like Grand Theft Auto, with a radio being our background noise before they decided on Sean Lee composing the soundtrack. Or possibly this character may have appeared on one of the radios, in Jimmy's various safe houses. Up next is the barber, and given his rather snobby appearance, he does give off the vibe that he would have been the barber in the higher end part of town. Or possibly a very, very early version of Mr. Moratti. The barber from Bullworth Town. So now onto something a little bit creepier, a cemetery caretaker. This is definitely not the creepiest person here, as you'll see, but because of this I believe Bullworth Cemetery might have played a bigger role in the game initially, because it seems a bit redundant to make a character dedicated to the cemetery if the area is never used at all in the final game. Maybe he did have something to do with that deleted Chapter 7 mission that took place there. Sadly, we may never know. Actually, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to show you the very early version of Mr. Luntz, and I hope you're all ready for this because I know none of you are. Are you ready? Seriously, are you ready? Get prepared. Okay, here we go. Yep, that is Mr. Luntz. That is terrifying. Going off the name of Creepy Janitor, I can definitely tell they were planning for the janitor to have some kind of creepy, scary secret, as even in the final game, Mr. Luntz is considered to be really creepy, going on about how he has plans that Crabblesnitch doesn't know about, alongside some disturbing comments like tying people up in basements with chains and worse. I actually really want to know what secrets Mr. Luntz was going to have initially. Like, part of me thinks that maybe they did have like a sort of side mission planned, or a side story planned, where you actually do some digging and you find out something really scary and dangerous about him, which sort of like, makes it a bit more horror-like in a sense. But sadly, we may never know what plans they were originally having for Mr. Luntz. But going off this guy's appearance, the fact it says creepy and Mr. Luntz's personality in the final game, we can definitely tell they were planning something big for him. And it's just a shame that we may never know what it is, because it might have been lost to time completely. Now, sticking with the school, we were originally going to have a swim captain, and no, this is not a beta version of Mr. Burton either. This was an entirely different character, because there is still concepts of a beta Mr. Burton here. Now, I actually do wonder how long this character made it into the game before he was cut, because there are hints that Bullworth did have a swim team. And of course the pool, which goes entirely unused for one mission. So who knows, maybe he made it to 2005 and then he was cut. None of us know what the original plans for Buddy were, but the mayor of Bullworth was going to make an appearance. Now, because of what we know in the final game, with Jimmy tagging up City Hall, it does kind of make sense for the mayor to appear and making a mark or something, but ultimately, we never know. But speaking of that, there were also plans to have a train engineer appear, who definitely isn't also seen anywhere in the final game. But like the swim captain, he might have been cut past the concepts, as there is a railway system in Buddy, and we do see it around New Coventry. The crazy kid is up next, and I have no idea who this was worked into. He's definitely not an asylum patient, so maybe he could have been a non-Clique student? Unsure of that, however. There are other characters that definitely do not seem like big characters, these being the criminal kid, the fat kid, the gas attendant, the panicky kid, and the poor kid. It could be possible that the poor kid was eventually worked up to be the greasers, but yeah, I think that's a bit of a stretch because you can see he doesn't look anything like a greaser. Now up next we do have a load of concepts for girls, and pretty much all of these were either cut or worked into existing characters. For example, our first girl is Band Girl, and this might be a very early concept of Beatrice. I say this because of her hair accessory and the glasses, and of course having the pattern on her skirt. Of course it might not be, and I'm unsure on that, but it does seem to hint at both having a band initially and possibly meaning that music class was planned to have a much bigger role. Now we do have a really young girl up next, who might have been a very early concept of Gloria, because well, in the final game, Gloria is a little kid, she's characterised as being exceptionally smart and has glasses. If this is Gloria, then we can tell that she was originally planned to be white, and of course then changed to sort of like black. Our next girl is definitely a better version of Mandy Wiles. Well, two of them should I say. Because the first character's name is Cheerleader, and the outfit is the exact same outfit we see on Mandy's beta appearance, with a whole sweater over a dress kind of look. Now Mandy's beta look can still be seen in winter, and we also have another jock girl who wore a hoodie over a skirt, and had a hockey stick, and you can tell by putting both of these concepts together that both of these were probably used to make Mandy, as the sporty girl has Mandy's hair and face, and the cheerleader, well, has Mandy's beta outfit of course. It would have been interesting if they kept both characters separate because it seems like Cliques might have had more than one girl initially. Now this next girl was deleted entirely from the game and her name was Heather. As seen here, she has a backpack and wears what looks to be like a non-Clique school outfit, and the outfit is very close to Christy Martin, so this might have been a very early draft, but to be honest I don't think it is, because something about the design hints that this was a completely different character. And once again, like Chuck and Cassie, the fact she has a name means that she might have been thought of to have been like a main character initially. So I don't think she might have been inspired for Christy, but don't know really. Now the next character was also definitely cut from the game, only known as Death Obsessed Girl, who wears an outfit similar to Heather, but she carries a voodoo doll, a purse and wears tights. She also looks like she might have had a streak in her hair too, going off the design, and while it doesn't say, she definitely looks like she could fit in with the punks a bit. Next up is the exchange student, who definitely isn't seen anywhere either. There's not much to really mention here, so yeah. But now we get onto the characters who we do see in the final game but were changed considerably, and our first appears to be Russell Northrop. But this was long before he had a name, so in the concepts he's only called Dumb Bully. Now the reason I think this is Russell because of how dumb Russell is in the final game, and of course Russell being called dumb is essentially part of the Tad's house cutscene. Anyway, we can see that Russell's appearance here is unrecognisable. He wears a school sweater in very bad condition, his body proportions appear to be more akin to Wreck-It Ralph than human, which is something we will definitely be seeing more of later. But the next concept for the bullies is the sadistic bully, who I think might be Wade Martin, because of the spots on his face, the short sleeved appearance. If this is Wade, he was going to be large. I mean look at the size of those hands, he genuinely looks bigger than Russell was going to be. And this bully's clothing does match up with what Wade wears too, especially in the beta. I want to say beta, I mean like before Buddy's release, you know, not like the concepts, but probably about early 2006 Buddy beta, you know. Now up next is the sidekick Buddy, who I have no idea who this was supposed to be, but then again all these are merely concepts anyway. And we do have another sidekick Buddy up next, who appears to be a really young boy. But if there's one thing we can learn from this is that maybe the little kids were going to be Clique members initially. But this would probably change because being able to beat up 11-year-olds isn't something that would be approved by the ESRB. But we do have another Buddy, only known as the Tall Bully. There's not much I can say here as he doesn't look like he's an early concept of any character we see at all. But I think the amount of Buddy concepts here shows that the Buddy Clique were the earliest thought of faction, as there's no signs of greasers or preppies or even townies here, while there are concepts for punks, nerds and jocks, but they're nowhere near as complete as the Buddies are. And in fact, now that I think of it, that's actually pretty depressing, because like this shows that the Buddies were going to be like this main antagonist kind of group, you know, the first thought of faction, and then in the final game they play like a major role in chapter 1 and that's it, they're never used again really. Well, Russell is, but you know, that's actually pretty depressing now that I think of it, you know. I wonder what plans that Rockstar had for the Buddies initially. Anyway, going back to the school faculty, Edna was originally going to be a man, but still kept the absolutely disgusting, filthy personality she's known for in the final game. Now I noticed in the concepts that this guy is smoking and he's in a very filthy condition, and that's something that Edna is too. So it seems like only the gender and the name was changed here, and I've also noticed that he's barefoot and that's just wrong. Handy the hobo, it still looks like his final design, but you can sort of tell this is him. And speaking of more you can tell it's him, this is Dr. Crabblesnitch. The only differences I can see here is his outfit looks more akin to the prefect's attire. Nurse McRae was changed drastically from a slightly larger black woman to an elderly skinny white woman. Remember that concepts for Nurse McRae do exist on the Tyler Wilson concept artworks, where she was named Danica. So she was probably changed very shortly after the concepts. Now Dr. Slaughter was going to be much larger and he spouted facial hair. Well, a lot of facial hair. He also had hair on his head rather than being bald. Mr. Burton also went through a major overhaul, going from a full head of hair to balding. He had a much thicker moustache akin to Stalin, and he was much hairier overall. He also has a bulge in his shorts which I don't think I can show. But aside from that, the only other change was his shirt, which was changed to a sweaty grey vest. There are two concepts of the nerds here, but I have no idea who they're supposed to be because one looks either really young or really tiny with a massive head, and the other might have been worked into one of the skinnier nerds. This might be Ernest, as going off the Tyler Wilson concept artworks, Ernest was the only skinny nerd first planned. Now we do have a double bit of cut content here because, well, there were concepts for a fireman, and we do have a fireman called O'Rourke who was cut from the final game, but a beta version of him does exist in the Tyler Wilson concepts. So it seems like O'Rourke, or Jake or whatever his name was supposed to be, had big plans initially, but of course was just entirely scrapped. Next up is the wrestling captain, and this could be Bob, because in the final game Bob loves wrestling, and even though he was cut, his only appearance that exists in Buddy is in wrestling attire. That's if he's modded into the game, that is. Now we might have the earliest known concepts for Ted Thompson or Kirby Olsen, as this is for a quarterback. There's not much I can say here, because we have had concepts for other quarterbacks, and this was actually much closer to Kirby, in the Tyler Wilson concepts again. So this could be Kirby Olsen, or it could be Ted Thompson. Either way, I'm not too sure which one of these it could be. I think this one comes down to your own interpretations. Zack the Comic Store Owner was originally one of the earliest known concepts for some strange reason. He was originally going to be much slimmer, had more hair, looked cleaner, and had facial hair. He also had a shirt with a Green Lantern logo on it, but obviously that was changed due to copyright concerns. Mr. O wasn't changed too much, but then again I guess you don't need to drastically overhaul a minor shopkeeper. And finally we have the Mailman, who was a very early concept from Mr. Svensson, and we can tell he was changed drastically too. He was originally planned to be black, carry a mailbag, wear sunglasses and wear a hat, but obviously in the final game he's changed to a generic middle-aged white man. So that's it guys, those are all the character concepts that were available, and as we can see, all of these give us a massive insight into what Buddy was going to be like initially. More exaggerated, possibly more darker, more adult oriented, and yeah, I really do hope that more concepts like these come up soon. Because honestly, upon looking at all of these, I really do want to see, like, you know, the whole creepy janitor kind of stuff they had planned. It honestly says to me that they were planning for big things initially, and yeah, that's really it. I also kind of want to know what the original storyline was, you know, with this whole Chuck, Cassie and Heather, and yeah, I don't really know what to say. So thank you for watching and have a great day.